Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for returning for another segment. We're going to speak with returning guest Dr. Scot Ebbinghaus. He's with Merck Research Labs, returning again to talk about some data that was presented at the European Society for Medical Oncology, or ESMO 2019 Congress, on the Phase 3 PROfound trial of Merck and AstraZeneca's LYNPARZA. Welcome back to the program, Dr. Scot Ebbinghaus.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about these exciting results.
Now, you're with Merck Research Labs, and you've collaborated with AstraZeneca. Talk a bit about that collaboration.
So Merck and AstraZeneca entered a collaborative agreement to co-develop and co-promote olaparib, which is known under the brand name of LYNPARZA, around the world, and it's been a very, I think, fruitful collaboration for both companies. We also work together on an experimental MEK inhibitor called selumetinib, so we're really pleased to be able to see some of the fruits of our labor coming out at major congresses like ESMO.
Now, for our listeners who may not be aware or familiar, what is LYNPARZA currently FDA approved for?
So currently, LYNPARZA is FDA approved in two different tumor types, ovarian cancer and breast cancer. In ovarian cancer, LYNPARZA is approved as a second-line treatment for platinum-sensitive relapse, and is approved as a maintenance therapy for patients who've had a favorable response to chemotherapy and who have a BRCA mutation.
This Phase 3 PROfound trial of LYNPARZA, what does it aim to do?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important trial. So patients who have metastatic prostate cancer have been treated for many decades now with hormonal therapy, and there's been really tremendous progress in the field of advancing hormonal therapy. But to date, no precision medicines or targeted therapies have ever been able to be successfully developed in this disease. And prostate cancer eventually becomes refractory or resistant to the effects of hormonal therapy. And when it does, it's a very frustrating disease to treat. The control arm of the PROfound study kind of illustrates just how devastating the disease is once it's become resistant to hormonal therapy, as the patients on the trial only lived about 3.5 months without disease progression. So what PROfound aimed to do is to identify a subgroup of men with castration-resistant prostate cancer who had a mutation in any one of 15 genes in the homologous recombination repair pathway. And so men who had a mutation in any one of these 15 genes were eligible to join the trial, and the trial compared olaparib or LYNPARZA to standard of care. In this case, the standard of care that was selected was a new hormonal agent, or NHA, and the NHA was at the physician's choice based on what the patient would have previously received before they became resistant to the effects of hormonal therapy.
What do you think the findings, or how do you think the findings are going to ultimately impact clinical practice going forward?
Well, I think so. The trial showed that there was a really impressive effect in the improvement in progression-free survival in men who were in what we called cohort A, which are the men with BRCA mutation or a mutation in a gene called ATM. And that result was the primary endpoint of the trial. It showed an improvement in progression-free survival from about 3.5 to 7.5 months, which translated into a hazard ratio of 0.34. That's a big impact in the overall population of patients that had any one of the 15 genes. The difference in progression-free survival was 3.5 months in the control arm and 6 months in the olaparib arm, and the hazard ratio there was 0.49. So I think these results really show that there is a subpopulation of men with castration-resistant prostate cancer that can be identified by genetic testing or testing in the tumor, and who will have a benefit from olaparib. So we're taking these, results to the agencies, to the regulatory authorities around the world, and discussing it with the regulatory agencies. And we hope that in the very near future, this will translate into a treatment that will be available to men who have castration-resistant prostate cancer and who have a mutation in a gene in one of the genes involved in homologous recombination repair.
Where can our listeners get some more information about LYNPARZA, the trial, and about what's maybe next at Merck and AstraZeneca? Yeah,
so I think we have a number of ongoing trials in prostate cancer and other diseases. I think in prostate cancer, I'll just highlight two of those. We have an ongoing trial which is known as PROPEL, and that's a trial where we're combining olaparib with a new hormonal agent and comparing it to new hormonal agent alone. And then we have another trial that is a Merck trial called KeyLink-10, and that's a trial where we're adding Keytruda onto LYNPARZA in patients who have metastatic castration-resistant prostate cancer. Both of those trials are in an all-comers population, so they're not being selected for HRR mutations, and we hope that combination therapies will allow us to see the benefits of olaparib across a broader population of patients. For more information, please go to Merck.com to look at the trials that we have ongoing and our interesting data that were presented at ESMO. And for any information about LYNPARZA's already approved indications, please visit LYNPARZA.com.
Scott, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us this morning on Health Professional Radio.
Neil, pleasure to speak with you, and thanks again for inviting me.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.